Hello. My name is Robert and welcome. Welcome to Recovery Guy Podcast. And this is Thursday, so you know this is the Checkup. Thank you for tuning in whenever or wherever you are listening. We're just glad you are here. So we've added another J officially to our podcast team, and that is my daughter Jane. So now it's John, it's JJ, it's Jane. We are excited, adding elements to what we're doing. 2020 is just an added adventure to what we were able to accomplish in 2019. And before I get involved in that, I've got to refer you back to Jay Shetty and the On Purpose podcast. I've never even watched an episode of Dancing with the Stars. It's never been a show that I've cared for. My daughters watch it. I have friends who watch it. It's just nothing that I've never been excited about. It might have been because it might have gotten in the way of a Laker game or who knows, but I've never watched it. But here's who I'm a fan of now. Julianne Huff. She is on Jay's program, and I'm going to add a link to it in my description of this podcast. She has this incredible talk with Jay, and the title of it is How to Feel Satisfied with Your Life and Create Beautiful Memories Along the Way. Again, I'm going to put a link to it in the podcast description. You will want to listen to Julianne Huff. I won't be a fan of Dancing with the Stars, but I guarantee you I am now a fan of Julianne Huff. And of course, my man Jay on Purpose gets it done week in and week out. So please support these other podcasts. Let's get more let's add resources and avenues and not be just glued to one idea. Let's really expand our area of influence. And you don't even have to agree with everything that I say or Jay or Sean or any of the other or Shane, or they'll be the first to tell you. You're not going to believe everything I say or how it's delivered or the content itself. But there's got to be something for you to take, right? So we examine everything. We find out what's going to work for us. We take that, we apply it, we make it our own, and then we put it out as our version of what we hear. I want to thank you so much before we get into today's podcast. Today's podcast is called Appreciate the Moment. I Owe It to Myself. Appreciate the moment. So before we get into that, I promised you an announcement, and here's the deal. The outpouring of support has been sensational. My biggest challenge sometimes is getting back to all of you who have contacted me to share with me what your experience has been prior to meeting me, the involvement that we've had together as you've become a regular listener to the podcast. And again, I've heard from so many of you, so thank you. I've been hearing lately from people who are saying, how do we support this podcast? And, I've had conversations before on how to approach that with crowdfunding and different kinds of things. So people want to know how they can support what we're doing. They want to know how to support not only Recovery Guy Podcast, but recoveryguy.org. So after chatting with John and JJ and Jane, we decided to utilize patreon.com. So that's my announcement today. Patreon.com, we are, not aligning or affiliating ourselves, but we're going to be using them as an avenue. Patreon is a service that creates an avenue for listeners to support movements that they want to be a part of. We're going to be featuring various reward levels that you can use or share as part of your recovery journey. As we entered 2020, we did so with over 2,700 listener downloads in 5 months. My mind is blown with how responsive you've been to what we are trying to put forth. We are reaching the recovery community, and we have you to thank for it. We want to increase our outreach. We want to grow to a live call-in podcast sometime within the next 5 or 6 months, and we want to be more available to the opportunities we are given. Just recently, I've cut my professional life, my professional job as a trainer and customer service representative who trains agents in how to think. I've cut that down to 4 days a week now professionally because your response has required me to take extra time. And we're all sacrificing to make this work. We need your help to do it. So next Tuesday, Jane and John have promised me all of the bones of what we need to do. So on the fix next Tuesday, we will give you all the details that you will need to partner with us. In the meantime, if you want to go to patreon.com, look a little bit more about what they're like and what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it to be of greater value to the entire recovery community. So thank you again for that. Appreciate the moment. I owe it to myself. I was never a person who wanted to be in the moment because the moment hurt. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I wanted to be somebody else, doing something else, somewhere else. I did not want to be me in that space and time. And really, I didn't owe anything to myself because I was nothing but destruction. The only thing I thought I owed me was to drink and to use and to engage in other negative behaviors. And that was killing me. So learning to appreciate the moment, staying in the moment, capturing it for what it is and extracting as much joy from it as possible should be our goal in recovery. Because as you will know, and if you don't know it yet, you're going to learn it along the way. Stopping a behavior, whether it's a substance-generated behavior or another physical behavior that doesn't require a substance, but is just as damaging and maybe even more so on a physical level. We don't like who we are, and when we stop the behavior, we're still not sure if we're fond of who we are. We don't know if we appreciate things, but what we do know is we need to move forward, but we really don't know how. We still have a negative mindset. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Where in reality, when we move along forward in recovery, we realize not only is there not another, the shoe's not going to drop, there's not another shoe, right? We gotten rid of those when we cleared away the wreckage of our past. But we have to learn how to appreciate the moment, the here and the now, because the here and the now moves forward with me. My here and now yesterday, or my here and now today, is built on my here and now yesterday, or an hour ago, or 5 hours ago, right? So I have to learn how to appreciate those moments that help me appreciate moments moving forward. So what does it mean to appreciate? What does it mean to recognize this time? So let's look at the word appreciate from my dear friends at dictionary.com. Appreciate means to be grateful or thankful for. Do you have a sense of gratitude? Are you thankful? Do you look at your life and understand its value? Do you have a regard for things. In this case, this moment. What is a moment? A moment is the present time or any other particular time. So for this case, it's the present time, but it could be a reflecting moment or it could be a projecting moment. When I look back at yesterday, do I appreciate? Am I grateful for what was given? Or when I look towards tomorrow, do I have a value or a regard for the things I hope to happen, that I plan to happen, right? So a moment is not just this moment in time, although for the purpose of this discussion, it's going to be. So I have to be grateful and I'm thankful for this present time, because no matter what condition I am in, I guarantee you my condition could be worse. And if I'm in a position that I don't agree with, now, fortunately, right now, I'm in a position I'm in great agreement with. I'm in front of the microphone. I'm sharing with you. What's not to like about that? What's not to be grateful for or thankful for that? Because I've recovered. And as it says in the big book, I've been given a new way of living. I have been resurrected from this person who had no purpose, but was denying everything positive in his life, to a person who embraces it all, good, bad, or indifferent. I want to experience it because light is not recognizable apart from dark. Joy is not distinguishable unless it is set aside pain or discomfort. You get me? You can't have a yin without a yang. You can't have happiness without sorrow. There needs to be a comparison. Even in science, there needs to be a plus and a minus. There needs to be polar opposites, right? To understand and appreciate the other energy that's there. So when I also look at this present time, this moment, it's to place a high estimate on it. What value, what estimate do you put right now, right where you're at? Do a personal assessment, do a personal inventory, and find out, are you grateful? Are you thankful? And if you're not, why not? If it's doing something that you don't agree with, that's not in alignment with you, why are you doing it? If it's inconsistent with who you say you want to be or what you say you're doing, why are we doing it? Especially for those of us who are in recovery, right? Because we have steps, we have accountability, we have people we can go to. We have a way out. We're not trapped any longer unless we decide to sort of negotiate with our recovery. Then it's not really recovery, right? It's an off and on approach to living differently. So we have this moment, we have this time, and I hope you are fully conscious or aware of this moment. It says to detect or to raise in value. So if you were to look at this moment right now, and let's say that you didn't completely agree with it, you wish it was something more, is there a way that you could raise this moment to appreciate it in value, to elevate it to the position that it deserves? You know, I was sharing with a friend about mercy and grace and being grateful for the things that have occurred while being overjoyed with the things that haven't. So sometimes raising my value or raising or elevating the particular situation I'm in so I really appreciate it, sometimes it's to understand what I'm being spared from. But we deserve to appreciate the moment, don't we? We have struggled so long and so hard, and so many of us have sacrificed so much. Why don't we appreciate it? What's holding me back from saying, you know what? I'm going for it. I'm going to set everything aside and I'm going to appreciate and enjoy this moment. I'm going to set aside my selfishness and my self-centeredness, and I'm going to make the most out of this moment. I'm going to place a high estimate, a high value. I'm going to be fully conscious of everything that's going on around me with a high regard and a sense of gratitude and thankfulness for where I'm at right here, right now, because I know that I could have been somewhere else. So I reached out to my friend Angie today and chatted with her for a moment and gave Angie's a pretty good sounding board. I have a lot of wonderful people out there that I just like to pick their brain and go to and see what's on their mind and their heart as I would share things, because I want to share things by others. So we have a more eclectic approach to what we want to do here at Recovery Guy. You hear from me all the time, but I don't want it always to be my words, even though I may paraphrase or restate in my words. I want it to be the content of the person. In this case, it's Angie. She's my dear friend. She's been in recovery a few years now. She works in treatment. She's a single mom, and she just kills it day in and day out. And she is an overcomer. She is a rock star. I have so much compassion and level of encouragement for young women nowadays making it in this world and setting aside challenges and difficulties and things, especially that single moms have to overcome just to be even for the day, let alone some of the elevated things I see some of you do, and I'm quite impressed. I want you to know that. And Angie said some pretty cool things. Here's where she started. I'll just list them. I've sort of broken them down into bullets just to arrange them a little bit more to stay on task. But when Angie goes to appreciate the moment, because she does owe it to herself, she made that very clear. She said when things seem chaotic and she feels overwhelmed. Do you ever feel that way? Sometimes life is like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And because we feel overwhelmed, we just want to get off the ride. I remember, it was terrible. I was at a carnival when I was in junior high school, and there was this girl that I wanted to impress, right? So we're going on this ride, one of those spider rides where that ride spins around really fast, and then it sort of tilts up, and then the car that you're in spins in the opposite direction that the wheel itself is going around. And I don't do good on these rides anyway. So I ate all this bad food. Yeah, you know where this is going, right? So I eat all this bad food, and I get on this ride to impress this girl. And to tell the end of the story, that didn't happen. Okay? Just so you know. It was a colorful night to get a little graphic. So I'm on this ride. It was at Covina Park in Covina, California. It was like the Kiwanis, the big annual thing. Everybody's there. And so here I am on this ride, and it starts spinning, just in one direction. And then the seats we were in started to spin the opposite way. And I think on the third turn, where it just sort of whips you around, I knew something very bad was going to happen. I could feel my stomach. I could feel overwhelmed. And at that point in time, life was very chaotic for me. And so as we get to the apex and it spins me, I'm having to hold back what my stomach wants to do. Unfortunately, this girl was seated on the side of me that had the centrifugal force going her way. So when I was going to get sick, it wasn't going to go over me, Because remember, every time we whipped hard, my stomach would go, and that's when we were going in her direction. So to make a long story short, I'm trying to get off this ride, but every time I open my mouth to tell the carny to stop the ride, guess what comes out? Anyway, he finally sees what's going on, and he slows the ride down. But by this time, everything was a little late. Does life ever feel messy for you like that? It did for me in early recovery, where everything seemed to be so overwhelming, and life was just chaotic. And I didn't think I was going to go drink or use, but I thought I was going to be sick. I didn't know what to do with appreciating moments and appreciating times and learning how to adjust to this new way of life. So there has to be some things that we do to make the most out of the moment that we have. I don't recommend eating too much and going on this ride. Not a good thing. Here's what Angie does, though, and just some of her thoughts that she shared. Some simple things, because I like it. This is not rocket science. These are things that all of us can do if we make the decision to own the moment so we can appreciate it if we are convinced we owe it to ourselves. Even if you don't think you owe it to yourself, fake it till you make it. Pretend like you do until you do, right? I remember they told me, Tom Bennett told me, he said, you know what, Robert, if you're not sure you're an alcoholic, stick around because you'll do till one shows up, right? So if you're not sure you owe it to yourself, just owe it to yourself anyway. And eventually you'll realize that you do, and you're already doing it. So appreciate the moment. Angie said she just likes to turn off the TV and then turn off her phone. She just sort of disengages from outside influence and how important that is. Then she realizes the silence that she has created by turning off these things, and she just sits there. She sits and she reflects. Are you ready for this? On the movement she has made since day one. Now, that's not too bad because Angie's got, I think, probably 900 days or something like that, maybe more, 1,000 days. So she's reflecting on where she was at day one to where she's at now. You don't think she appreciates that moment? That reflection? She's turned off the TV. She's sitting in silence, and she's sitting there just marveling at where she decided to move toward and the influences she allowed to influence her and the God that she has aligned herself with. And then you know what she does? She sits and remembers how it all started. You know, it says that we don't regret the past, nor do we wish to shut the door on it. I love that so much. You know, I appreciate still being able to recount what it was like when I first came to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous back in 1986. It does so much for me in appreciating where I'm at today because there is a world of difference for us, isn't there? Have you done that yet today? Have you? And I don't care if you're 30, 60, 90 days. It really doesn't matter. We all have a starting place, and we've all moved forward from that place to where we're at right now, in this moment. Stop and reflect where you were and where you are. Does that not give you a sense to be grateful, to put a high value, to be fully conscious of this moment, to be aware of what has happened to you, to sit and remember how it all started. Angie goes on to say that she owes it to herself to be the best person she can be for herself and for her family and friends. God, I love this. This is like right out of the page of feeling good about who we are. She owes it to herself. I tell people all the time to be the best possible version of ourselves that we can be. She owes it to herself. And you owe it to you. Why not? Look at the price that you paid to get to where you're at. And then we take that energy, just like Angie said, we take that energy to feed ourselves, but to go share that with their family and friends. What a gift it is to give. If you're wondering why you're not receiving, the likelihood is you're not giving. I've never known a giver who wonders why they don't receive. Because, my friend, the receiving is in the giving. And I'm so glad that Angie included this. She owes, are you ready for this? Angie said she owes it to herself, and you're going to love this. She owes it to herself because recovery is work, isn't it? I mentioned it in Tuesday's podcast. Thank God it's simple, but it's not easy. Recovery is the highest reward, the most rewarding hard work we will ever do. It is hard work. It's day in, it's day out. It gets easier as we go, but it's always a challenge. It's always a commitment. Recovery is work. The digger you want to deep, the harder that soil gets sometimes. And recovery is work. We owe it to ourselves because recovery is work. Sometimes, she says, we got to do some things to get some things, right? This is not osmosis. You know, I don't sit on my couch and eating bonbons and wonder why I'm not losing weight. I need to go to the gym, parentheses, more often, close parentheses. But this is not by osmosis. We've got to do some things to get some things. And that's all part of it. God just says, you bring the shovel and I'll do the rest. I love this because we realize that God is doing for us what we surely could not do for ourselves. We do the work. God creates this entire blessing around it. God doesn't do the work for us, but he supplies the power and he creates the results for us. So let's go back. Appreciate the moment. I owe it to myself. Own that statement. Say that. Say to yourself right now out loud, appreciating the moment is something I owe to myself. Appreciating the moment is something I owe to myself. To be grateful, to be thankful, to place a high value or estimate on what I've been given in this present time. If things seem chaotic and you're overwhelmed, turn off the TV, find a place to sit in silence, to reflect on the movement that you've made since day one. Sit and remember how it all started to even have a greater sense of gratitude. Angie says, and we owe it to ourselves to be the best person that we can be for us and to those around us. Recovery is work. We just do some things if we're going to get some things. God empowers us to be great in this thing. And when we do those things, we can further appreciate the moment. Why not? Haven't we suffered enough? Does anyone know suffering that is self-imposed like we do? Probably not. So why not in recovery appreciate this moment, appreciate the time? If we owe anything to ourselves, it's to recognize what we've been given and be grateful for it and sit in this moment and reflect on how amazing being who we are, where we're at, doing what we're doing really is. Thank you for your time today. I'm always encouraged when I have an opportunity to share with you. Please remember Patreon and your opportunity to further support what we do at Recovery Guide Podcast and recoveryguide.org. Remember, next Tuesday, we're going to have a larger announcement and links for you to follow to support what we're doing to grow this movement. Don't forget to look in the description for Julianne Huff on my man Jay Shetty on Purpose on how to feel satisfied with your life and create beautiful memories along the way. Doesn't that sound crazy good? Reach out, share that link. Go on and tell Julianne and Jay how much you appreciated that podcast. Whatever we do, let's do it together. Let's get well together. We got broken apart. Let's get whole together. My name is Robert, and I am the Recovery Guy.
I was trying to do everything I